You're listening to Closing Market Weekly, the show where real estate closings meet real world insight. With your host, Phillip Hogan, and every week we break down the trends, tools, and the timing that keeps deals moving forward. Let's dive in. Hi, I'm Phillip Hogan, host of Closing Market Weekly. Welcome to another episode. Many of you may know me as the CEO of Signing Services of America. Since 2016, I've worked with hundreds of professionals across the mortgage and real estate settlement space, from title agents to escrow officers to lenders, attorneys, and notaries. One thing I've noticed in particular within this industry is that we often talk to one another, but not with one another. That's why Closing Market Weekly was created, to offer a space for honest, practical conversations about the real issues, challenges, and trends shaping the closing market. Today's guest is someone I've had the pleasure of working closely with for over 9 years, and that's Tisha Marshall. Tisha, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing?
Great, thank you. So let me tell you all a little bit about this fantastic guest, and she has got such a resume that it is mind-blowing. Tisha Mitchell is a highly respected real estate strategist, trainer, and speaker with deep expertise in real estate sales, new construction, real estate wealth preservation. With over 2 decades in the industry, she has helped countless clients and professionals navigate the complex real estate landscape with confidence and clarity. Tisha began her career in new home sales, quickly earning recognition as a top producer through her sharp market knowledge and ability to educate and guide buyers. Over the years, she's expanded her expertise to include high stake transactions, distressed properties, and real estate strategies for clients going through major life transitions. Her work blends financial savvy with a client first approach, making her a trusted advisor to both buyers and sellers. She holds a Master's of Science in Real Estate, which I didn't know existed, from Georgia, and we're going to learn about that, from Georgia State University, alongside a Master of Science in Administration from Central Michigan University and a Bachelor's of Science in Sociology from Western Michigan University. This academic foundation complements her hands-on experience, equipping her to deliver both tactical insights and big picture strategies. As a speaker and trainer, Tisha is known for her practical, no nonsense advice and her ability to simplify complex topics. She empowers real estate professionals, mortgage lenders, and clients to protect their assets, build wealth, and close deals with integrity and confidence. Her personal story: rising from teen mom to seven-figure earner. That's a great story. Underscores her belief that with skill, education, and grit, anyone can achieve financial and professional success through real estate. Oh my goodness. Tisha, welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you?
I am great. I'm so happy to be in your presence once again. Who knows when you meet people, when your paths will cross again. And I'm so grateful and thankful to be here with you.
Oh my goodness, so am I as well. How long has it been now? What, 8 years, 9 years?
I think it was in 2015, maybe something like that.
Yes, and that's when I started Signing Services of America. And look how you have grown and we have grown as well. But more importantly, we've been able to stay sort of like aligned with one another in this industry. And here you are to the show. So tell us a little bit more about your background. What was your first experience like in the closing process?
First of all, that's a funny story. I just want to say thank you for this opportunity to speak with you. But my very first real estate transactions, it's really funny. It was back in the day. I'm going to date myself, right? I was living in Sandy Springs at the time,
Uh-huh.
and my area of concentration was in Gwinnett County.
Uh-huh.
Never been there before, didn't know anything about it. But I was working for a brokerage that specialized in new construction. Well, that
Uh-huh.
was back before we had like GPS. Like we
Right.
had it, but it was expensive. So it was like a luxury, right?
Right.
And so we had these map books. Well,
Uh,
the pages will only go so far.
right.
Well, where I would have to tape with Scotch tape these map book pages together to figure out where I was going. Well, one of the things that my broker required at that time is that we would go and preview and get information about 100 new home communities before he would allow us to work with clients. And so my very first client did not know she was my first client, but she called and she was ready to get out of from one area to another area because her child was in school, wasn't doing well.
Uh-huh.
And she was in the car with me. I didn't even know where I was going, right?
Uh-huh.
So
Uh-huh.
we're holding this taped together map, right, of where we were going. But we got to this community and the house was exactly what she wanted based on my training. And she did not know. I actually ended up selling 4 houses that weekend, but
Mm,
she didn't know until we got to the closing table that she was my first client.
mm,
So I say all that to say, if you're prepared,
uh-huh.
if you know what you're doing and you give people what it is that they want, they will work with you to help you get there. She said, I had no idea. I was like, child, I didn't even know how we was getting where we were going. But, we worked through, right?
Right.
So when we talk about strategy, I think
Right.
that's kind of where it started.
Yeah, what I mean, and that's also I hear the underpinning of just self-determination, you
Oh,
know,
absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
just being willing to, do whatever needs to be done, be as creative I need to be in order for me to be successful and move the ball forward. And I think that's, that is, that's the foundation, I think, to building anything that's worthwhile and successful, right? A great story. And so, gosh, for anybody who can remember the days before Google, oh my, hey, listen, you just heard it. One of the
When we
best.
used to be able to be in control of listings and who got what information, we don't have that. We don't do that anymore, but
No, not at all. My goodness. I mean, listening to your story about your first experience kind of like helps me to understand and appreciate how far, technology has really come into the real estate, the mortgage industry, and in some sense made it easier, made it more efficient, but also in another sense made it much more competitive because now everybody pretty much has access to almost the same information, right?
there's a difference between information and tools, right?
Okay, all right.
So one of the important things about what people don't understand about real estate is there's enough information out there for people to get confused.
Mm,
But as far as wading through all of that, one of the reasons why I call myself as a real estate strategist is I can get through the noise,
mm,
right? It
mm,
starts with where are we and where are we trying to go? And
mm-hmm,
then putting all those puzzle pieces together. No
mm-hmm,
amount of information that you find on the internet can give you those pieces, as well as being able to navigate the nuances that are going to come up throughout the process.
mm-hmm. Fantastic. Wonderful. Speaking of the process, so we are now in our rapid fire segment. And please tell us what's one closing mistake you'll never forget?
Oh boy. The biggest closing mistake that I'll never forget
Mm-hmm,
is having clients who are not fully prepared. We get
mm,
to the closing table, you think that they've done all of their work with their lender, and something comes up at the end that we could have known about before we got started.
mm-hmm,
So for me, the first time that I ever miss a paycheck because of something that could have been prevented, for example, the client reported one amount of income, but when we got into the documentation that they couldn't count it for whatever reason, and we can't close.
mm-hmm,
That is the mistake that I will never allow to happen again because we spend so much time with these clients. So for
mm-hmm,
me, the biggest thing is I don't accept pre-qualifications. You have
mm-hmm,
got to be pre-approved. The
mm-hmm,
lender has got to see your documents, and we have to talk with real numbers because as a strategist, I need to know what we're working with.
mm-hmm.
There's a way that we can navigate a bunch of different things if I know before we're at a deadline or if I know what's going on prior to.
And then you also, what I'm hearing is it's just important for there to be open communication and, responsiveness between you and the client and the client and between you and the client and the client and you. And when that doesn't happen, this, the whole deal begins to slowly disintegrate, and so it's just interesting that, in the real estate world or in the front of the transaction, which is where you are, it's paramount that there's communication there, and it's paramount that communication continues throughout the life of that file until it actually enters the settlement stages and closes. And so all of you first time homeowners and existing homeowners, let's be you're hearing from one of the best, right? And she's giving you some really good gems as to how to get to the closing table. Speaking of the closing table, one tool or system you swear by.
It's definitely my content management strategy.
Hmm.
Just really just having steps along the process.
Hmm.
For me, I know that my gift is in connecting with people.
Hmm.
I'm not an admin, right?
Hmm.
But in anything, you have to cover your back end because I know that that's not my specialty. I have someone who is excellent at that, who looks over my contracts, who say we're missing this. Why is the verbiage here? We should move this over there. She's a licensed agent. So I'm not ashamed to say to someone, I'm not an admin. So if you're waiting for things to look perfectly and packaged up in a bow and all of that, that's not what I do. However, I know that's not my strength. So I partner with people who can cover that for me.
Very good. But that in order to scale, you have to delegate. In order to delegate, you have to have the right personnel in your team to be able to handle the things that you either don't do well or that you don't want to do at all, that you don't have the time to do. So I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I think that's really pretty savvy to know yourself, to realize, okay, listen, I'm not good at admin, but I know somebody who is, and I'm going to delegate those things to those individuals. That's great. So next question is paper or digital? Do you prefer paper or do you prefer working with the digital?
I say both.
Okay. Tell us
The
why.
reason be, for me,
Hmm.
being able to jot things down and put my hands on things
Hmm.
is good,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
It's what I'm used to. I like to hold a book in my hand.
Hmm.
However, I like to walk every morning and I may have this same book in my phone as an audible.
Uh-huh.
But I come back and say, "Oh, I remember it was talking about in this chapter and it had this table it was going over. Let me physically see that."
Uh-huh.
So it really just kind of depends on what it is. I am very efficient in the digital space. I'm really good with computers and files and that sort of thing.
Hmm.
I also like to put my hands on paper sometime.
Hmm. Okay, great. And our final question in that segment is, what's one trend in the industry you think is overrated?
This is going to be counterintuitive, right?
Okay. All right.
I think that a lot of new agents rely too much
Uh-huh.
on digital, on social media,
Mhm.
right? Instead of building
When you
relationships.
say you rely too much on digital social media, can you be more specific, please?
Lead generation is not just posting on social media and expecting for people to come. There is a strategy around that. But
Hmm.
often we forget that it is our relationships outside of that technology that's going to help us navigate. So it
Hmm.
doesn't matter if I am, getting my message out to hundreds of thousands of people. At the end of the day, it's real people who get transactions done.
Hmm.
Real people that you have a real relationship will work harder with you knowing that we're all getting to the same space. So there's one thing when you have like exposure. But once you have that exposure, what is your plan about keeping these people in your ecosystem and then also creating a team around you to help them navigate getting to the end? So I think that we take the first couple of steps and we post on social media, but we don't have a lot of intentionality around it. And we don't rely on relationships as much as we could.
And so, with that being said, do you think that networking in person would be a continuation of what that person has for lead generation has started on the internet?
Absolutely. I mean, networking is really about making the connection.
Mm-hmm.
What you do afterwards is about building the relationship,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's only so much. I work from home, but
Mm-hmm.
there are times when I know I've got to get out and meet some people. I've got to hear things from a different perspective. I got to sit next to and rub shoulders with another human being.
Mm-hmm.
So there are times when you can use computer for efficiency,
Mm-hmm.
but it does not take the place
Place.
from building solid relationships.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well said, and thank you for that. And again, to my audience, you're getting some real gems from our guest here, and thank you so much. So we want to move on here, and Tisha and the audience, Closing Market Weekly's tagline is closing deals or closing episodes. What does it say? Closing deals one episode at a time. So the deal that I would like to propose to Tisha to see if we can actually close is on a topic that we have pre-selected, to be honest, with our audience, but we want to see if we can close it. And so the deal is the seller preparation in a challenging market. That's the deal that we want to see if we can close by bringing some light to maybe some dark areas, or bring some clarity to possibly some unknown and uncertain areas. And what better person to hear from than you? So seller preparation in a challenging market. Let's go for it. That's the deal. Can we
One of
close
the
it?
things that sellers, sorry to interrupt you, one of the things that sellers get confused about is they
Mm,
think that it's all about selling the house. When in
mm,
actuality, it really is about having a plan for what you're doing moving forward. So
mm-hmm,
think about it from a seller's perspective. You've been in a house 5, 6 years, 10 years. You have not applied for a mortgage in that amount of time, right?
mm-hmm,
So interest rates have changed, your financial situation has changed, prices have changed on what properties are moving forward.
mm-hmm,
And so I think sometimes sellers get overconfident in
mm,
believing that, hey, I'm going to sell my house and I have this much equity and that's it. Well, maybe it's not,
mm-hmm,
because we need to be focused on the entire picture. So
mm-hmm,
one of the things that you've introduced me as is a real estate strategist. It's not about can we sell your house, but what is the strategy? Where are we trying to go? What are you trying to put in place for your family? The
mm-hmm,
only way we really can navigate that is knowing specifically where you are. So for sellers, what I would say is the biggest thing about selling your house is where are you going next? And what do you have to do to prepare for that before your house goes on the market? What you don't want to have happen is your house is sold, it's under contract, you've got a buyer in place, you're now on the lookout for another house for yourself, you're under contract for that new house, and now you can't close because of something that we could have looked at or prevented from the very first spot. Right. So then there's a domino effect that happens. You're not buying. So you've got some sellers that are out of pocket.
mm-hmm,
You at this point you're not you're compelled to sell, but you have nowhere to go,
mm-hmm.
and if you can't make it work, then you're impacting buyers on the back end.
So,
And so,
so, so, so, Tisha, hold on a second. Let me stop and back up here. So you're saying that you're advising as a strategist that the seller should prepare for the next move before they begin selling the current home and putting.
absolutely, all real estate transactions start with a seller.
Mhm. So okay, so then you're saying that if I am a homeowner, and we're looking to put our home on the market. So before we put our home on the market, we need to have some type of plans in place for where we want to move to, and start working on that first.
Yes, there's that.
Ah.
And what do we need to do to financially position ourselves not to be house poor moving forward? You
Mm,
have equity when you're selling your house often,
mm-hmm,
right? Not
mm-hmm,
every time, but mostly. Is the best strategy for you to put all of that equity in the house, or can some equity be used to pay down debt? Can
mm-hmm,
some equity be used to put aside for college for your children? Can
mm-hmm,
some equity be used to maybe save some of it for an investment property? It
mm-hmm,
really does matter where the seller is in their lives and what is their overall plan and strategy.
mm-hmm. Okay. Okay,
Not all
great.
agents are going to have that conversation with the seller. They're going to
Mm-hmm,
say, hey, you want to put your house in the market? Oh, great. I'm going to come over and put a sign.
mm-hmm,
There's so many other things that are important about whether or not someone is selling their house and what their next moves are.
mm-hmm. So again, audience, is not so much about selling your current home, but it's more so about preparing for the future by knowing what your next moves are, and then establishing a framework for those moves. So when it's time to start executing, you have a very good idea and a path to how to complete that process. So as a strategist, Tisha, what advice would you give to someone who is looking to sell their home?
The first question I always ask is, where are you going next? What
Mm-hmm,
is prompting you to sell? And why are you choosing to sell right now? right?
Hmm.
So there's always a situation going on. It's not just, I just want to sell my house. I had one seller who was like, I just don't want to be a homeowner anymore. I just want to move. I don't want to be bothered. Just get done with this house. Give me what you can get for it and let me move on. For
That's
some
fine.
sellers,
Hmm.
it is, I have, a seller now that is his family is like packaged into a house like sardines. You got
Hmm.
two girls, one a teenager going to high school and one elementary school child in the same room.
Hmm.
And while the market does not seem like it's the best for a seller, for his family,
Hmm.
it's best for them to make that move and they
Hmm.
have the equity to do that and they have some options because
Hmm.
they can rent it, they can hold it, which allows us to kind of make some decisions about, do we want to buy first and rent this one out, do we want to buy first and then sell this one empty, do you want to get them in when school starts? It really all depends on where the seller is in their situation. The
Hmm.
more information they have overall, the better strategy I can help them create.
Great. And I remember a time when, sellers were being offered a extraordinary amount of money for a buyer to purchase their home. And oftentimes the prices for those homes were exceeded the value in the home. Are we still in that same type of market, or has it changed to the point where now, it's either a buyer's market, or what kind of market is it right now?
So value is relative, right? Value is what a ready, willing, and able buyer will pay for a home.
Hmm.
And that really just depends on what the buyer strategy is. We often get confused what a lender will loan you for a home
Hmm.
versus what a home is worth.
Right.
They're not necessarily the same.
Hmm.
So, for example, you may decide you're going to pay a little bit more money for the house that's next door to your mother than a regular market buyer will pay for it. So there are factors that are outside of what will the bank give me a loan for to purchase a house, right? It depends on whatever your strategy is. So maybe somebody moving from Maryland, they may have to sell their house at less than what they would have, but what's most important to them is to move to Atlanta. So they may leave some stuff on the table.
Hmm.
When we think about why people do what they do, the reason why I ask, where are you going next and why?
Hmm.
I can play around with variables a little bit to help them get to the space. Like, are we
Hmm.
going to argue over $2,000 when you're trying to be, in Atlanta in, 30 days? Or can we make that up someplace else?
Hmm.
So it really just kind of depends on where we're trying to go to really figure out where we can play around with things, if that makes sense.
So, as a strategist, Tisha, you really dive in and take a deep dive with your sellers to really help them to really explore what are your options, what have you thought about, what are the possibilities, and then begin build. And I know you said this before, but I just want to repeat how important it is to have a person like you in there on your team, because you're preparing the seller for the unknown and the known. And oftentimes the unknown is what's more important, and sometimes could be the deal, the things that win the deal, opposed to preparing for the known, and then you get blindsided because no one looked at the unknown. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so that's where that social work it comes in, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna be honest and say, listen, I get paid on commission. I
Yeah.
get paid when this deal closes.
Right.
So my mind is saying, not only am I strategizing for them, I'm strategizing for me,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So I'm trying to factor in what are all the ways that I might not get paid, and
Right.
how do I have a plan in place for that? That's number one. I got to
Mhm.
think about myself.
Yes.
But bigger than that, once I know what someone's motivation is and why they're doing what they're doing, when we run into a hiccup, I can say, listen, this is where you're trying to go. This is a hiccup. This is an area where we may have to make a compromise.
Hmm.
Overall, for
Hmm.
what it is that you want, do
Hmm.
you want to focus on this or do you
Hmm.
want to get there?
Hmm.
For me, knowing exactly what we're working with,
Hmm.
that lets me know what variables we can move around and it kind of helps me problem solve. How do we get there in the best space? But bigger than that, my job is to keep them focused on their goal. And don't get caught up in all this stuff and the nuances and all of that stuff. We're going to get there. And I'm not going to say it's not important because it is. But my job is to keep them focused on what it is they want. And if all of the variables don't lead them there, I don't have a problem with saying, this might not be the right time. This might not be the right market. Maybe you've got to take care of some things in your personal life before we make this move. Because I think about this thing, I'm working with people who are on their third and fourth transaction with me. We're talking about I've been doing this for 20 years. They've sent me their family members, all of that. They come back to me because they know I'm going to take care of them. I've even had clients come back and say, "You told me don't buy this house." I know, but I'll sell it for you. And when you have that kind of respect and that kind of rapport, and they take responsibility for what you've told them, it makes the relationship easier moving forward.
You know what? Again, another value I'm hearing that is laden in your the work that you do, or the portion of the mortgage industry that you do, is trust, and that the buyers have to have trust in you, the sellers have to have trust in you. You have to trust your own instincts, and you have to trust the game plan that you have devised for you to obviously, receive your compensation for the work that you put into it. But it's also all about the deal, and if you package the deal correctly, then the deal will come off. Hopefully it'll come off well, and we'll get a sale, and then goals will be met. So there's a lot of trust here that's related to the work that you're doing, and the terms that you just discussed, and the seller preparation in a challenging market. So Tisha, listen, man, I think that it sounds like to me that we were able to close a deal on this particular episode. What do you think?
I want to piggyback on what you say about trust, right?
Yes.
And people always say it's about them trusting their agent, but it
Yes.
really all comes down to the agent trusting the client as well.
Yes. Yes.
I've walked away from clients who say, well, I might want to sell it if I can get this price. And if
Mm,
I don't sell it, I'll just keep it.
right.
Well, from an agent's perspective, if I'm spending marketing dollars, if I'm spending money on, photos and getting that house prepared, do
Mm,
I really trust the seller who's like, well, I'll just take it off the market? No, that's not my ideal client.
right.
And if that is their thought process, it's
Mm,
fine. I can say, listen, we're probably not going to be a good fit.
right.
You may find someone that will be able to say, I might or I might not. It really kind of just depends. But I've had those where, I knew the seller was, and I went into it with that mindset. So when they were making decisions, it didn't upset me because I knew what it was going in.
hmm But and then also, with that is a lot of what I consider to be professional maturity, right? Knowing yourself, knowing your own personal limitations, your aspirations, and then knowing how to package those things, and again, is trusting yourself and not feeling uncomfortable if you have to say, well, yeah, I think you're a good client, but maybe this is not the time that you and I can work together. And so in our world, I've had to make those decisions with people that we wanted to hire, that wanted us to hire them. And it's just like, listen, you just get that instinct. Well, not this one. You know what I mean? It's not no forever, but it's no for right now. And then you have to be able to be comfortable enough to live with that. And it requires a person to have that maturity. And after 20 plus years in the industry, you have accomplished a tremendous amount, and you have developed that sense of assurity and sense of sincerity, and a sense of, well, I know what I want and I know how to get it. And because it's worked for me in the past. And so, so for me to continue that way, I need to find people who will fit into the framework, if you will, or the model of individuals that I think that I would like to work with. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And it's who wants to waste their time on something that they kind of like sense knew wouldn't work out in the beginning, right?
I think that's absolutely true. I mean, here's what I know. I take real estate very seriously in
Mm,
my education. I'm an investor. Like I've really poured into this is not an easy profession.
mm,
Just it isn't.
right.
Um, and because of that, I'm not being disrespectful when I say I know what I bring to the table and I know how I serve. So I would prefer, right, to spend time with people who can appreciate that
Mm-hmm,
rather than trying to convince someone that I know what I'm talking about,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm,
So, one of the things that I'm very intentional about is being in this space, like where you and I are, where we're having conversations and people can see for themselves whether or not we might match, whether we might be good. And generally, what we know is that people who are educating themselves online and trying to get information are really more committed to the process.
And the process is really, the process is really what it's all about, right? And that when a deal lacks a process, then you lose control. Then you fall into the realm of the unknown. I don't know what's going to happen, and why? Because you really haven't developed a process as to how your system should flow. And within closing market, we've developed a process within Signing Services of America. We have developed a process, and that process has allowed us to stay in business for 9 years, and in some really questionable times within our country. And so, but through those 9 years, we've learned a lot, and we have come to know you, and you've grown tremendously. And so we're just so excited that you came on to Closing Market Weekly to talk about this very, very important topic. And I think that we closed the deal. And I'd like to get your footprints on that before we move on to the closing part of our show. Do you feel as though we closed the deal?
I believe we closed the deal.
I think we closed it tight too. Okay, so listen, what is one tip for that you would like to leave to our listeners, and that is, if you have one piece of advice for someone in your industry trying to improve their closing success rate, what would it be?
Know yourself. Know
Mm,
yourself and don't be afraid of what you don't know. What I
mm-hmm,
say about this business is it's one that you have to skin your knees. I say this to my mentees and my coaching clients. They're like, "What are you talking about?" In this business, oftentimes you don't know what you don't know because it's never come up. You
mm,
don't even know it's a thing until you're in the middle of it. You've never had that situation happen before. With each transaction, it's a nuance. And
mm,
so I say go into it without ego. Go into a situation in curiosity and trust yourself enough that no matter what comes up, either you have the mental capacity to figure it out, but you can also say, huh, I don't know. Where can I go get an answer to this question?
mm-hmm.
And so I say all that to say there's going to be things that are happening. This business changes every day. And even me having done this, I'm just before this, I was on a coaching call and I'll be on a coaching call on Friday. I'm going to be in with some top producers tomorrow, and we're talking about what's going on with the market. I'm not going to sit here and say I know everything. I want to know. I want to have my fingers on the pulse of the market. So be humble and be open to learning.
Great, great. Wow. Whew. And so Tisha, so as we wrap up, first I want to thank you again for jumping onto the show, and also would like you to please leave the best method of communicating, of contacting you, for anyone who's interested in possibly signing up as a coach, possibly becoming a guest speaker, possibly looking for an experienced realtor to help them sell or purchase their next home. How
Uh,
can someone contact you?
Thank you for that. So you can reach me on my email, which is tcurry@kw.com. Curry is my former name. It's Mitchell now. And so I'm in the transition of making those changes. So don't be alarmed. You can
So
also
spell that for us, please. Spell out your email.
TCURRY
Hmm.
at kw.com, stands
Hmm.
for Keller Williams.
Hmm.
You can reach me via my cell phone, 404-354-3846, or you can follow me on YouTube at the Abode Global Living Group. There's plenty of information for you there.
Okay. My goodness, Tisha, thank you so much for coming on to the show. There has been a boatload of information that you have disseminated, and I'm sure out of our audience, many of those will appreciate you and the information that you've shared. And thank you so much for coming on and departing or imparting that information with us. Thanks for tuning in to the Closing Market Weekly. If you found this episode valuable, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone in the industry. For more insights from the front lines of real estate closings, we'll see you next week.